All right, strap yourselves in because today we're taking a deep dive into Moby Dick.
Moby Dick.
Yeah, you heard it right. Herman Melville's Moby Dick.
The great American classic.
An American classic, a whale of a tale. But before you, click that skip button thinking, oh, I had to read that in high school, we're talking about something a little different today.
Yes.
The Audible audiobook. We're looking at reviews, articles, even some personal notes.
That's right. All the good stuff.
To really understand this audiobook.
Absolutely.
And maybe even the story itself in a whole new way.
And you know what's so fascinating about this audiobook is that it takes a book that was published all the way back in 1851 and makes it feel incredibly relevant today.
Yeah, well, it's Moby Dick. It's kind of timeless in a way.
It is.
But how does the audiobook really make it feel that way?
Well, it really dives into, obsession and revenge and the human condition.
Okay, so more than just a good yarn about a guy chasing a whale.
Oh, so much more. But to really understand it, we kind of have to lay the groundwork a bit.
Okay.
So remember that the book is narrated by Ishmael, a young sailor who signs up on the Pequod, this whaling ship.
Right.
Captained by the enigmatic Captain Ahab.
Okay, and Ahab's the one who's a little upset.
Oh, yeah, intense dude.
Uh-huh.
Lost his leg to Moby Dick.
Right, the white whale.
This giant white whale.
Right.
And he is out for revenge.
Yeah, that's kind of the whole plot.
Yeah, pretty much. Driving force.
Yeah.
And the audiobook captures that intensity.
Okay.
Right from the get-go. I mean, right from Ahab's first appearance on deck, the narrator nails that monomaniacal fury.
Okay.
I mean, there's this one line where Ahab is rallying the crew to hunt Moby Dick, and he says, "God bless you, men. Steward, go draw the great measure of grog. But what's this long face about, Mr. Starbuck? Wilt thou not chase the white whale? Art not game for Moby Dick." You can practically hear the obsession dripping from his voice.
Wow. Yeah, I can see how the narrator's performance would really amplify that. Like, you're there. Like, you're on the ship feeling it.
Absolutely. And it's not just Ahab.
No?
He brings the whole crew to life.
Oh, wow.
Each with their own distinct voice and personality.
Okay.
I mean, you've got Starbuck, the first mate.
Uh-huh.
He's cautious.
Okay.
Skeptical of Ahab's obsession.
Makes sense.
And then you've got Stubb, the second mate, who's a little more lighthearted,
Okay.
Always cracking jokes even when things are, a little dicey.
So you've got the intense captain, the cautious first mate, and the comic relief. Sounds like every good story.
It's a classic setup.
Yeah. What about the rest of the crew? Like, is there anyone else we should know about?
Oh, well, you can't forget about Queequeg,
Quake.
the harpooner,
Yeah.
and Ishmael's best friend.
Oh, right.
He's this fascinating character, a tattooed, harpoon-wielding,
Cannibal.
Yeah, cannibal from this remote island.
All right, that's a pretty important part of the story.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But despite this intimidating appearance, the narrator conveys this gentle demeanor. Wow. Deep spirituality,
Right.
which really contrasts Ahab's, fiery nature.
Right.
Yeah.
So it sounds like the audiobook is really painting these really vivid character portraits
It is.
just through the narrator's performance.
Oh, it's like listening to a full cast audio drama.
Wow.
And then the sound design adds another layer of immersion.
Oh, okay.
You've got the creaking of the ship, crashing waves, haunting calls of seabirds.
Yeah.
It really creates this atmosphere.
Wow. So you're not just hearing the story, you're like experiencing it.
Exactly.
I can imagine it's like, feeling the rocking of the ship as they chase Moby Dick.
Totally. And that brings us to one of the key themes of the story.
Okay, which is?
Man versus nature.
Right.
Melville really uses the vastness and power of the ocean to highlight how fragile human life is.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, you've got these guys on a tiny ship.
Yeah.
Going up against this massive mythical whale.
Right. Exactly.
It's like the ultimate David and Goliath story, but there's more to it than just that, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Because I remember the book. Like, I mean, it's pretty dense.
Yeah.
All these philosophical musings, these detailed descriptions.
It's not just an adventure story.
Yeah.
It's a deep dive into complex themes like obsession, the nature of good and evil, the limits of human ambition.
Okay, so how does the audiobook, how does listening to it change things? I mean, versus reading Melville's prose.
Well, when you're listening, you're forced to slow down.
Oh, okay.
To absorb the language.
Right.
Let the narrator guide you through these denser passages. Gives you time to think about the ideas.
It's like having a personal guide through these philosophical depths of Moby Dick.
Exactly. And it's not just about understanding the ideas.
Yeah.
It's about experiencing them.
Okay, so the narrator is really bringing those themes to life too, along with the characters.
He uses these subtle shifts in his tone and pacing to emphasize key passages.
Okay, so we've got the narrator's performance bringing characters and themes to life. The sound design is creating this immersive world. But Moby Dick, it's notoriously challenging.
It is.
I mean, all these different types of whales, nautical jargon, philosophical digressions. Like, how does the audiobook handle all of that?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay.
The audiobook acts as a translator.
Okay.
It helps you navigate the more challenging aspects.
Okay.
For example, Melville goes into great detail about all these different whale species.
Yeah, I remember that, like the right whale and the thinback and the sperm whale. It was a lot.
Yeah.
It was cool, but it was a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And the narrator highlights the key points,
Okay.
explains the significance of each species,
Yeah.
connects it back to the themes.
So you're not just getting a lesson in, what is it, cetology?
Cetology.
You're actually, understanding how all of that fits into the narrative.
Right.
So it's like having, like, a whaling expert.
Yeah.
Whispering in your ear. Explaining all the details. Making sure you don't get lost.
Exactly. And that's what makes the audiobook so unique.
Yeah.
It manages to make Moby Dick, which is so big and complex.
Right.
Accessible and engaging.
Really?
Even for people who are, like, intimidated.
Right.
By the size of it.
Yeah, by the whole thing.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Okay.
Right? It's incredible how this audiobook takes this, what could be a pretty dry topic, like 19th century whaling, and makes it riveting.
Yeah, I know, right?
Yeah.
And it actually reminds me of something I wanted to ask you about. We've talked about how the audiobook brings the characters to life.
Right.
But what about the whale itself? I mean, Moby Dick is not, just some random fish. He's practically a mythical creature.
Oh, you're absolutely right. I mean, Moby Dick is more than just a whale. He's this symbol, right?
Yeah.
It represents the untamed power of nature,
Yeah.
the unknowable depths of the ocean.
Right.
And the audiobook really underscores that mystery.
Okay.
Like, there are these moments where the narrator's describing Moby Dick,
Uh-huh.
and his voice takes on this almost reverent tone.
Wow.
Like, you can practically hear the awe and the fear in his voice.
So the audiobook isn't just helping us understand the characters and the technical details. It's shaping how we perceive, like, the symbolic heart of the story.
Exactly. And it makes me think about this theme of duality in Moby Dick, right? We've talked about how the narrator highlights these contrasting personalities of the crew.
Yeah.
But that duality extends to Moby Dick himself.
Oh, interesting.
He's both beautiful and terrifying.
Yeah.
It's a source of wonder and a symbol of destruction.
I never thought about it that way, but it's so true.
Yeah.
You have those passages where, Moby Dick is described as this majestic creature.
Yeah.
Almost godlike.
Right.
In his power. And then, you have those scenes where he's, just wreaking havoc, destroying ships and men.
Right. It's that duality that makes him such a compelling and enduring figure.
Yeah.
And the audiobook captures that complexity. I mean, the narrator's voice, it fluctuates between awe and terror.
Yeah.
Mirroring those conflicting emotions that Moby Dick evokes
Right.
in the characters.
It's like we're experiencing the whale
Yeah.
through Ishmael's eyes and ears,
Exactly.
feeling that same mix of fascination and dread.
Totally.
That brings me to something else I've been thinking about.
Okay.
Moby Dick isn't exactly, a lighthearted read.
Right.
It deals with some pretty heavy themes.
Yeah. Like obsession and, the destructive nature of revenge.
Uh-huh.
How does the audiobook handle those darker aspects?
Well, it doesn't shy away from them, that's for sure. I mean, the narrator doesn't try to sugarcoat the violence
Right.
or the psychological turmoil
Yeah.
that Ahab goes through.
Right.
In fact, I think the audiobook might even heighten those elements.
Really? How so?
Well, think about it this way. When you're reading, you can control the pace.
Oh, yeah. You can skim.
You can skim over those more disturbing passages.
Right.
But when you're listening,
Yeah.
you're captive to the narrator's voice.
Okay.
So you're forced to confront those emotions head on.
That's a good point. And it probably makes the listening experience more, intense.
Absolutely.
more emotionally charged.
And the sound design plays a big role in that too, right?
Okay, yeah.
The creaking of the ship during the storm,
Yeah.
the splashing of the water as the whale breaches.
The shouts of the men during the hunt.
Yeah,
It all adds to that sense of danger
right.
and unease.
It's like the audiobook is creating this like sonic tapestry
Exactly.
of tension and dread.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, and that brings me to something else
Okay.
that's really unique about this audiobook, the way it handles the theme of fate.
Right.
Because Moby Dick is full of, foreshadowing omens, these subtle hints that, Ahab's quest is doomed
Right.
from the start.
Right from the beginning.
Like those prophecies from the old sailor Elijah.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, those parts gave me chills.
Yeah, they're spooky.
Yeah.
And the audiobook emphasizes those moments.
Okay.
The narrator's voice might drop to a whisper.
Uh-huh.
The music might swell ominously.
Okay.
There might be a sudden silence.
Right. It's like the audiobook is adding this extra layer of foreboding,
Exactly.
making us feel the weight of destiny,
Yeah.
bearing down on Ahab.
It makes you question his choices.
Right.
I mean, is he truly a victim of fate?
Yeah.
Or does he make decisions that lead him to his doom?
That's such a great question, and it's something that I think the audiobook really makes you, wrestle with.
It does. It does. And it's not just about Ahab.
Right.
I mean, Moby Dick raises these questions about fate and free will
Right.
for all the characters.
Even for us.
Even for us as listeners, makes you wonder if we're all pawns.
Wow, that got deep fast. But, that's one of the things I love about Moby Dick.
Yeah.
It takes these seemingly simple ideas, right? A whale hunt, revenge,
Yeah.
and spins them into this, profound exploration of the human condition.
Exactly. And the audiobook enhances that, I think.
Okay.
It forces us to confront those big questions, to
Right.
feel the weight of them
Right.
more than if we were just reading the text.
So it's not just about understanding Moby Dick. It's
Right.
about experiencing it
Yes.
on this whole new level.
And that brings us to something we haven't really touched on yet,
Okay.
but it's a huge part of what makes this audiobook so special.
Which is?
Accessibility.
Right, because I remember trying to read Moby Dick in high school
Yeah.
and just feeling completely lost.
It's a dense book.
It's dense, yeah.
Challenging language.
Yeah.
Complex ideas.
Mm.
But the audiobook makes it feel manageable.
Okay.
Enjoyable, even.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I think part of it is the pacing.
Uh-huh.
You're not rushing.
Right.
When you're listening.
You're letting the narrator guide you.
Yeah.
You're taking the time to absorb those details, to appreciate the language.
Yeah.
It's beautiful, you know?
And it's not just about making the story easier to follow.
Right.
I mean, the audiobook adds to the experience.
It does.
The narrator's voice, the sound design,
Uh-huh.
the music.
Yeah.
It creates this immersive,
Yeah.
emotionally resonant experience.
It's like you're not just reading Moby Dick. You're living it.
Right. And I think that's what makes the audiobook so special.
Yeah.
It takes this classic,
Mm-hmm.
makes it accessible to more people,
Right.
while also deepening our understanding,
It does.
our appreciation of the story.
It's a testament to the power of audiobooks as a medium.
Yeah.
For storytelling.
Right.
They can take us places
Yeah.
that traditional books just can't.
Okay.
They make us feel things more intensely,
Yeah.
think more deeply, and connect with the stories on a whole new level.
Couldn't agree more. This audiobook has definitely given me a whole new perspective
Yeah.
on Moby Dick.
Uh,
And I think it does a great job of highlighting those unique elements
yeah.
that make the story so compelling.
It does. It does.
But we've only scratched the surface of what this audiobook has to offer.
Yeah, we have.
There's still so much more to unpack. Okay, so we're back and ready to wrap up our deep dive into the Moby Dick audiobook from Audible. And, we've talked a lot about how it makes this classic story, accessible and even enjoyable.
Yeah.
But one thing I keep thinking about is the narrative structure
Okay.
of Moby Dick.
Right.
It's kind of a story within a story,
Uh-huh.
right? I mean, we're seeing everything through Ishmael's eyes.
Right.
And he's got, some pretty profound things to say along the way.
That's a great point. I mean, Moby Dick is not just about the action of the whale hunt.
Right.
It's about Ishmael's journey
Okay.
of understanding.
Okay.
I mean, he starts out naive,
Right.
full of these romantic notions about the sea.
Yeah, yeah.
But through his experiences on the Pequod,
Uh-huh.
he comes to a deeper understanding of himself and the world.
So how does the audiobook handle those shifts in perspective?
Hmm.
Because you've got Ishmael, reflecting on the events.
Right.
But then you're also like right there in the action
Yeah.
with Ahab and the crew.
Right. Well, the narrator does this amazing job of navigating those transitions.
Okay.
You're right. Sometimes he's Ishmael the observer, reflecting on the meaning
Yeah.
of these events.
Okay.
But then, in a flash, he embodies Ahab raging against the whale,
Right.
raging against fate. And it's not just the voice that changes, it's the tone, the pacing, the emotion.
It's like he's a one-man show,
He is.
bringing all these characters to life. I mean, that's got to be pretty challenging.
It's a challenge,
Yeah.
but that's what makes it so captivating. It's like you're
Yeah.
listening to a full cast
Yeah.
where each character has this distinct voice and presence.
And those shifting perspectives, I mean, they really add to the overall experience.
They do.
You know, they force you to think about the story from different angles.
Right.
You know, consider the motivations,
Yeah,
the emotions of each character.
absolutely.
So the audiobook is doing a great job highlighting all these different voices, layers of meaning within Moby Dick.
Yeah.
But there's one more element that we haven't really talked about,
Okay.
and it's something that's pretty hard to capture in any other medium,
Right.
the feeling of being at sea.
Oh, you're so right. Moby Dick is as much about the ocean itself
Right.
as it is about the characters,
Yeah.
their quest.
And the audiobook really immerses you
It does.
in that world.
Yeah.
I mean, we've talked about the sound design,
Uh-huh.
but how does it actually create that sense of, you know,
Right.
being out there on the vast ocean?
Well, it's not just those obvious sounds like the crashing waves,
Yeah.
the creaking of the ship.
Right.
It's the subtle details.
Okay.
Like the wind whistling through the rigging, the distant cries of seabirds,
Yeah.
those long stretches of silence
Right.
that are suddenly broken by the spout of a whale.
Wow, yeah.
It creates this incredibly realistic soundscape.
It's like you can smell the salt air, feel the spray on your face.
Yeah, I'm starting to see why people are raving about this audiobook.
Yeah, me too.
It's not just telling the story.
Yeah.
It's making you feel like you're a part of it.
And that sense of immersion, it just amplifies the power of the story.
It does.
You really feel the vastness, the mystery of the ocean,
Right.
the danger and the beauty
Yeah.
of it all.
And that's essential to Moby Dick.
Because ultimately the ocean is a character in and of itself,
It is.
right? This powerful force that shapes the destinies of Ahab, Ishmael, the whole crew.
Absolutely. And it's a force that we as listeners get to experience
Yeah.
through the audiobook.
It's funny, we started this deep dive thinking about the audiobook, like as a way to, you know, make Moby Dick more accessible.
Right.
And it does that.
It does.
But it does so much more.
I agree.
It's not just about simplifying.
Yeah.
It's about enriching,
It is.
adding these layers of meaning and emotion that you might not get
Right?
from just reading.
Right.
It's like this audiobook has like unlocked something
Yeah.
new for me. Even though, like, you know, I've read the book.
Yeah.
I've seen the movies. Like, I thought I knew Moby Dick.
Right.
But it's made me appreciate the story, the characters, Melville's language
Yeah.
in a whole new way.
And that's the magic of audiobooks.
Yeah.
They can transport us,
Right.
make us feel things more deeply,
Yeah.
open our minds
Yeah.
to new perspectives.
Well said. So for anyone out there who's ever been curious about Moby Dick, but felt intimidated maybe by the size of it or the complexity,
Yeah.
I urge you, check out this audiobook.
Check it out.
It's an experience you won't forget.
You won't.
And on that note, my friends, we've reached the end of our deep dive. But we'd love to hear your thoughts. What stood out to you about Moby Dick? Did the audiobook change your perspective? Let us know. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.